One winter morning in suburban Chicago, 5-year-old Blake opened the door like he always did. But this time there were no footprints, just white. Silence. He stood still and whispered into the cold. "No one needs saving today, but thank you for guarding the door all this time." And then, it happened. On the untouched snow, a single line of dried dog prints began to appear one by one, leading away, then vanishing. No one saw anything. But the whole town understood some things aren't meant to be explained. They're meant to be believed. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more haunting and heartfelt cinematic stories like this one. Chicago, winter. The kind of winter that bites through gloves, slips under scarves, and hangs in the lungs like smoke. A city dulled by ice and wind, where even time seems to crunch underfoot. Snow doesn't fall here. It settles heavy and constant until the world forgets what color pavement is. In a quiet suburb just north of the river, nestled between two leafless sycamores, sits a small blue house with peeling paint and fogged windows. The kind of house that was once filled with laughter, now dulled by the quiet routines of young parenthood and long winters. Inside, the radiator hisses, a soft lullaby of warmth in a house that rarely speaks louder than a whisper. It's 6:42 a.m. Blake, 5 years old, and as light on his feet as the wind pads across the hallway in oversized socks. His pajamas are mismatched, one sleeve too long, one cuff rolled. He doesn't care. In his right hand, a small plush toy, some undefined creature with matted ears and a faded smile. It has no name, but he carries it like it breathes. He climbs onto the low windowsill beside the door as he does every morning, breath fogging the cold glass. And there it is again, the tracks. A single row of tiny dog prints leading from nowhere in particular, across the untouched snow straight to their front door. No drag marks, no tire impressions, no other footprints, human or animal. Just a neat line of paw prints, perfect, sharp, silent. Blake stares at them. This is the 6th morning in a row. He doesn't call for his parents. He just watches. Still, like he's afraid to blink. His small fingers tap the window slowly, unconsciously matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. Down the hallway, Anna stirs in the kitchen. The smell of burnt toast and instant coffee fills the air. Kyle's shaving in the bathroom, cursing the dull blade under his breath. They're good parents. Exhausted, loving, forgetful, in the way people become when life turns into a loop of daycare drop-offs and credit card bills. Mom Blake finally calls soft but certain. The prints are back. Anna doesn't turn. "Sweetie, we talked about this. Remember what Daddy said, dogs like to wander." "There's no dogs here," Blake says. "Not small ones. Not like that." She sighs. It's not an annoyed sigh, just a tired one. She walks over, wiping her hands on a towel, and kneels beside him at the window. Maybe it's Max from 2 blocks over. He always escapes the yard. These are different. Blake's voice tightens. Max doesn't walk straight. These ones do, always straight, every time. Anna glances out. He is right. There's no meandering, no nose-to-ground shuffle like most dogs leave behind. Just one line like something or someone walked with purpose. She tries to shake the unease. Well, he's a polite little visitor, whoever he is. Not even knocking, huh? Blake doesn't laugh. Kyle appears behind them, towel draped over his shoulder. He looks out, then shrugs. Snow brings out all kinds of weirdness. Probably just neighborhood strays. But it's the same. Every time Anna says quieter now. Kyle wraps his arms around her, gives her a light squeeze, then bends down beside Blake. "Hey, champ. What's got you so interested in some paw prints?" Blake thinks about that for a moment. He doesn't know how to say it out loud. Doesn't know how to say that sometimes he feels the prints before he sees them. That some mornings he wakes up already turning his head toward the door. That last night, he thought he heard a bark, but soft low, not from outside. From inside. "They're watching," he finally whispers. Kyle chuckles. "Creepy," he says, with a grin ruffling his son's hair. "You been sneaking scary cartoons again?" But Blake just stares at the glass. Outside, the prints lead up to the welcome mat and stop. No return trail. Anna opens the door. Cold rushes in, stinging their faces. The air smells like metal, like frozen trees and old memories. She steps out, crunches onto the porch and peers around. Nothing. No dogs, no neighbors. Just the wind pushing faint spirals of snow across the empty street. The world is still. Too still. She glances down. The prints are real. Crisp. Deep enough to be recent. She calls out, "Here, pup! You lost." No answer. No sound at all. Kyle joins her, but he's already retreating back inside. "We'll put up a camera. That'll settle this mystery." Anna doesn't answer. Something about the silence makes her uneasy. Not fear, just the sense that they're being observed, like someone or something is waiting. She closes the door. Back inside, Blake is now standing at the window again, hugging his plush tighter. That day, Blake draws during breakfast. A sketch of a dog, lopsided but distinct. Small frame. One ear flopped over. Tail curled to the left. He colors it brown with a single black spot over one eye. When Anna sees it, she pauses. "Who's that, honey?" "It's him," Blake says. "Who?" "The one who walks to the door." The dog with the cold paws. She blinks, unsure. "How do you know what he looks like?" "He told me." She hides her shiver. The day unfolds in monotony. Kyle goes to work. Anna cleans. Blake stays indoors because the snowstorm is supposed to get worse. The weather report says another 6 inches by evening. But at 3:12 p.m., Blake asks to go to the door again, just to check. Anna hesitates but lets him. The prints are gone now, buried under fresh snow. But Blake insists they're still there, just under. That night, Kyle installs the camera, points it right at the porch. "Let's see this magical mystery mutt," he says. Anna smiles half-heartedly. But deep down, something's shifted, because that morning she'd noticed something odd. Something she hadn't told Kyle. The snow around the prints hadn't been disturbed, not even from wind. Like whatever made them had stepped from thin air. Like the snow had formed after the steps. She'd seen that kind of stillness only once before in the hospital. When her father passed, and she stood by the window watching snow settle on a windowsill completely undisturbed by the flurry outside. It was the silence. The silence then, and now. That night, Blake dreams. He sees the dog again. Same shape, same eyes, same black spot. But this time, the dog isn't walking. It's waiting. Sitting. Facing the door. Its ears perk. It knows something. Blake wakes at 2:41 a.m., goes to the living room, presses his hand to the cold door. "Don't worry," he whispers. "I'm here too." The next morning, the camera footage shows nothing. Literally nothing. It records. The timestamp runs, but from 3:27 a.m. to 3:58 a.m., the footage goes pitch black. Not a glitch. Not a dropout. Just black. The rest of the video is clear. When Kyle rewinds, he frowns. That's not possible. They check the porch. Fresh snow. And there they are again. Dainty, perfect, precise paw prints leading to the door. No sound of a gate opening. No scratching. No bark. Just the prints. Anna stares at them longer this time. She bends down and notices something. They're dry, not melting the snow, not even wet around the edges. Blake walks out beside her barefoot, as if the cold doesn't matter. He squats beside the first print and smiles. He came back. Anna can't breathe. Did he say anything? Blake looks up and his voice is clear, calm, older than 5. He said, "I'll know when to stop. When it's not safe, he'll bark." Anna's face drains of color. "Stop where, Blake?" He shrugs. "At the river." And just like that, 7 minutes have passed. The clock ticks forward. The house behind them holds warmth. But in front of them, a silence too deep, too old to belong to just snow and winter. And beneath that silence, something watches. Something waits. The prints don't dry, because they never melt, because the thing that left them never left. The snow hadn't stopped in 3 days. It was quieter now, not the kind of silence that feels peaceful, but the kind that breathes behind your neck. Anna had begun waking earlier than usual, not because of Blake, but because of something else. An unease she couldn't name, like a hand reaching into her dreams, shaking them loose. This morning was no different. She tiptoed into the living room and found Blake already at the window. His small hand pressed against the frosted pane. His breath fogged the glass. His plush toy, now missing one eye, sat limply in his lap. Anna crouched down beside him. "Did you sleep at all, baby?" Blake nodded, but not to her. He kept his gaze outside as though something was just beyond her understanding. He was here again. She followed his eyes. The prints had returned just like the mornings before. Same straight line, same depth, same size. Leading up to their door, then vanishing as though the visitor simply ceased. "Who, sweetheart?" Blake finally turned to her. His voice was light, certain too calm for a 5-year-old. "His name's Doodle." Anna blinked. "Doodle?" He nodded. "He told me." She paused. "You had dreamed it?" No, Blake said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. He sat right there. He pointed to the doorframe. "At night, while you and Daddy sleep." Anna forced a smile. "You mean he talks to you in your dreams?" No, Blake repeated. "He talks here." The words hit harder than she expected. Not playful, not silly, not the ramblings of a child inventing an imaginary friend. His tone was off-measured, like he was trying not to scare her with the truth. Anna swallowed, feeling a lump in her throat. "What else did he say?" Blake shrugged. "He's been here a long time. Longer than us. He said he used to have a kid too, but they're not here anymore." She stared at him, goosebumps rising along her arms. "What does he look like?" Blake didn't hesitate. "He's small. Not a puppy, just short. One of his eyes is white and cloudy. His other one's yellow. And he walks funny, his back leg doesn't work right." Anna froze. She'd never seen a dog like that. And certainly Blake hadn't either. Kyle, reading emails in the other room, laughed when she told him. "A ghost dog. Come on, babe. It's a kid's mind. He probably saw something on TV. He doesn't watch anything with animals." Well, then he imagined it. Kids do that. But he described it too perfectly. Eye color, limp, everything. He even said the name Doodle. Kyle looked up from his phone, raising a brow. "Doodle, I know." Kyle chuckled. "All right, so we've got a haunted mutt. Should we call Scooby-Doo?" Anna didn't laugh. That evening, Blake asked if he could leave something for Doodle. Anna hesitated. "What do you want to leave?" "Cookies. He's hungry." She considered it. What harm could it do? She found an old tin of ginger snaps and gave him 3. Blake walked to the door, opened it just a crack, and carefully placed the cookies on the porch. "I'll check in the morning," he whispered. Kyle rolled his eyes. Let's hope raccoons aren't the ones talking to him. The next morning, before even the alarm clock buzzed, Blake ran to the door. Anna followed a step behind. The cookies were gone. Not a crumb in sight. But something else caught her eye. The prints, they were back. But this time, they didn't stop at the door. They curved slightly, continuing across the porch, then down the front path. They led away from the house, not randomly. They formed a gentle arc, a direction. Anna threw on her coat. Snowflakes stung her cheeks as she stepped outside, following the tracks. They led down the sidewalk past 2 quiet houses, then turned toward the edge of the park that ended at the river. She stopped short when the tracks disappeared into a patch of untouched snow, the pristine white like a canvas unpainted. Just gone. No fade, no scuff. The last paw print perfect as the first. Blake had followed her silently. He stood beside her now, hugging his coat to his small chest. "Where did he go?" Anna asked softly. Blake pointed. "That way, toward the water. He always goes there." "Why?" "He says it's where he remembers." Anna knelt beside him, gripping his shoulders. "Blake, how do you know all this?" He looked up. "He tells me. Not with words, just..." "I know." Later that day, Anna did what any mother would do. She Googled, "Doodle dog, Chicago frozen river accident." Nothing came up. She tried again, "Dog rescue child, Chicago winter." Still nothing recent. She clicked deeper. News archives, forums, message boards. And then she found it. January, D3. A child. Emily Waters, 6 years old, fell through the river's ice. Her dog tried to pull her out. The girl survived. The dog drowned. The article called the dog a hero. Its name, Doodle. Anna's stomach clenched. There was even a photograph. Blake's drawing. A small mutt with a dark patch over one eye. Short build, crooked back leg. It was identical. She printed it out and taped it to the fridge. That night, she didn't tell Kyle. She didn't want to argue. She didn't want logic. Not now. She just wanted to believe her son. At 2:17 a.m., Anna woke to the sound of creaking. She walked to the hallway, heart racing. Blake wasn't in his bed. She found him at the window face, nearly pressed to the glass. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "He came closer tonight," Blake said. Anna blinked. "What?" He sat right outside the window. He wagged his tail. Anna looked out. No prints, nothing, just soft snow falling. Blake, why didn't you wake me? He didn't want you to see. She knelt beside him, trembling. Why? Because it's not for you, Blake whispered. It's for me. The next day, Kyle finally snapped. This has gone on long enough. He's 5, Anna. 5. You think he's communing with a dead dog? I think something's happening. Something we don't understand. Kyle ran his hands through his hair. It's been a stressful winter. You're tired. He's tired. This is imagination, not what she snapped. Not real. Even when it leaves physical tracks on our porch, Kyle sighed. Footprints don't prove a ghost. What about the fact that no one saw any dog? No barking, no scratching, no sightings. Then someone's playing a trick. Anna's eyes narrowed. Who would play this kind of trick? They stood in silence. That night, Blake put out the last of the cookies. He said Doodle didn't need many, just enough to feel remembered. The next morning, the prints weren't just on the porch. They stretched again. Not toward the river this time, but around the house, circling it once, then vanishing. Anna stared at them. The prints didn't look threatening, but they weren't comforting either. They were deliberate, intentional. She looked at Blake. Did he say anything? Blake nodded. He said it's getting closer. What is? Blake hesitated. The remembering. He can feel it. Anna didn't sleep that night, not because she was afraid. Because for the first time in years, something was happening that logic couldn't box in. Something impossible. Something sacred. And her son was at the center of it. The next morning, a light breeze carried fine powder snow across the porch, softening the edges of the prints until they blurred into white. But still Blake stood there, waiting, listening. He whispered without sound. His lips barely moved. His eyes closed. Then slowly he smiled and turned around. He said thank you for what Anna asked, for letting him stay. Anna looked around the empty porch, the frost, the quiet. She nodded and closed the door behind them. It had been 2 weeks since Blake first said the dog talked to him. 2 weeks since the prints began appearing like clockwork, quietly, steadily uninvited, but somehow intentional. 2 weeks of trying to pretend everything was normal in a house that no longer felt like it belonged in this world. Anna stood at the sink, unmoving hands submerged in cold dishwater long after the plates were clean. Outside, the sky had turned slate. Not quite night, not quite day. Just that in-between hour when everything looked slightly wrong, as if filtered through memory instead of light. Behind her, Blake sat at the kitchen table humming tunelessly while drawing another picture of Doodle. This one had the dog sitting under the moon, looking up as if waiting for something that never came. Kyle entered, dropping his keys on the counter with a clatter. Still at it, huh? He said, nodding toward Blake's sketch. Anna said nothing. Kyle grabbed a beer from the fridge, opened it, sipped, then leaned against the doorway, watching his wife with the practiced detachment of a man who thinks it'll blow over. Did he say anything new? He asked. Anna dried her hands slowly. He says Doodle doesn't want to scare us, just wants to keep watching, protecting. Kyle sighed, ran his hand down his face. Anna? I checked the cameras, she said, flatly turning toward him. And nothing. No movement. Just snow falling. Then prints. Then it's a glitch. Anna's eyes narrowed. No, it's not. You're telling me a ghost dog walked across our porch, tripped the snow, but not the infrared. I'm telling you, she said, stepping forward, that something is happening. And you're not listening. Kyle scoffed. I am listening. I just don't believe every bedtime story Blake whispers in the dark. He doesn't lie. I didn't say he lies. I said he imagines. Anna's voice cracked. He's 5, Kyle. But the things he says, he shouldn't know them. Kyle took another sip. He's smart. He picks things up. He described the dog perfectly, right down to the leg, to the eye. You think he's psychic now? I think she said, stepping closer. You're terrified something's happening you can't explain. And instead of facing it, you're brushing it off like I'm crazy. Kyle looked at her. Because it is crazy, Anna. The room went still. Blake kept drawing, not looking up. Anna's hand trembled as she picked up the tablet on the counter, opened the home security app, and handed it to Kyle. Watch this. He stared at the screen. The video started at 2:13 a.m., snow falling in soft flurries. Porch empty. The lights on. No movement. Just a frozen frame of suburban calm. Then, at 2:19 a.m., the lights flickered. The snow continued to fall, but a shadow moved, barely perceptible. It wasn't a figure, not exactly. more like a shimmer in the corner of the lens. A distortion, then nothing. 2 minutes later, the camera glitched. The screen buzzed white for exactly 13 seconds before returning to normal. When it did, the prints were there. Clear. Kyle watched the footage 3 times. He handed the tablet back, jaw clenched. Could be a glitch. Could be a bug in the system. Anna stepped in close enough to feel his breath. Or maybe it's what he's been trying to tell us. Every day. Kyle looked away, muttering, "You need sleep." "No," she snapped. "You need faith." The silence between them felt older than either of them knew how to handle. Later that night, Kyle sat on the couch in the living room, flipping through TV channels, not watching any of them. He didn't hear Anna come in behind him. "Do you ever think," she said quietly, "that maybe it's not about what we believe, but what we're willing to see?" He turned, brow furrowed. Blake sees it, feels it, and it's real to him. That means something. Kyle shook his head. "You're letting this get into your skin. It's already in his." They both looked toward the hallway where Blake's bedroom door stood slightly ajar. Faint light spilled onto the floor from his nightlight. The hum of the heater ticked in the silence. Anna sat beside Kyle slowly. "Last night I had a dream," she said. He turned toward her. "I was in the snow, alone, and I was small, like Blake. The wind was loud and I couldn't move. I didn't know where I was. But then I heard barking, soft, like it was far away. I turned and saw prints appearing in front of me one by one. No dog, just the steps. And I followed them. I didn't even hesitate." She paused. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They led me home." Kyle didn't speak. He looked at her like he wanted to, but didn't know how to approach what he didn't understand. She leaned her head against his shoulder. "I think he's been here before us. Watching. Waiting for someone who could see." Kyle rubbed his hands over his face. "We're talking about a ghost dog, Anna. You get how that sounds?" She smiled bitterly. "I'd rather believe in a ghost dog than pretend my son's just making it up." Another silence, but this one didn't settle. Later that night, Anna returned to the window. She turned off all the lights in the house and stood in the dark, watching the yard. It was then that it happened. A flicker, movement, a shift in perspective, as if the camera had changed angles. But she wasn't watching through a camera. She was inside the house, and still she saw it. A brief glimmering POV just for a second from outside the window looking in, low to the ground, blurry yet steady. Watching, Anna gasped and stepped back, heart racing. Nothing was there. Nothing but snow, and the faint trail of paw prints etched into the white leading away into the dark. But she'd seen it. She knew she had. Someone or something was watching them, not with malice, but with purpose. The next morning, she didn't tell Kyle. He kissed her cheek before leaving for work, muttering something about a meeting he didn't want to attend. His eyes were tired, shoulders sagging like the weight of their son's imagination had slowly become a burden he couldn't carry anymore. Anna watched him drive away. Then she turned back to the house. Blake was waiting in the hallway, his hands behind his back rocking gently on his heels. "What did he say last night?" she asked. Blake smiled. "He said it's okay. He knows Daddy doesn't believe. He said Daddy used to believe once, a long time ago." Anna's breath caught. How would he? He remembers. That's what he does. Remembers what? Things people forget. Anna knelt in front of her son, searching his face. "Do you ever feel scared, Blake?" He shook his head. "Not when he's near." That night, Anna rewatched the security footage again, but not from the porch. She had found another camera, one Kyle had installed months ago in the backyard. She'd forgotten it even existed. It was old, grainy, but it worked. She scrubbed through the footage manually, hour by hour. At 3:06 a.m., the trees began to sway, though the wind had died down. At 3:07 a.m., a small shape darted across the yard, too fast to catch, but enough to trigger the motion detector. At 3:08 a.m., nothing. And then, at 3:09 a.m., a shape appeared. Not clearly, just the outline. A dog, small, low to the ground, sitting, facing the house, not moving. She stared at it until the tears came, not from fear, but from something else. Something she didn't know how to name. She turned off the screen, walked into Blake's room, and kissed his forehead as he slept. Outside, the snow began to fall again. And somewhere just beyond the window, a presence kept watch. Waiting, guarding, unseen, but never absent. The wind that morning was sharp enough to cut. It howled low through the skeletal trees, brushing against rooftops and hissing under doors like something alive. The river a few hundred feet from the house looked still from afar, glass smooth, silvered with thin ice, but up close it was deceptive. The current underneath never really stopped. It waited. Blake stood by the window, as always holding his red toy close to his chest. The thing was threadbare now. A one-eyed bear, or maybe a fox. No one could tell anymore. It had survived the washing machine 3 times and the fireplace once. But Blake still carried it everywhere. He called it Red. He turned to his mother. "Can I go outside today?" Anna hesitated. "It's cold." "I know, and windy. I'll stay close." She didn't answer right away. Something inside her stirred a flicker of unease, like intuition brushing her ribs with frozen fingers. But she pushed it down. She'd been anxious for days, ever since the camera showed. Nothing. She needed a moment of normalcy. Just one morning where Blake wasn't drawing ghost dogs or talking to someone she couldn't see. "All right," she said, "but stay where I can see you." Blake smiled and bolted to the door. She wrapped him in 2 layers, pulled the wool hat tight over his ears, zipped the coat all the way to his chin. Then he was gone, footprints pressing into the new fallen snow like tiny exclamations. Anna made tea. She kept the blinds open. For a few minutes it was quiet, peaceful. Then the wind picked up, and Red was gone. One moment it was in Blake's hand, the next it was tumbling through the air like a leaf carried in a wild arc across the snowy yard over the low wire fence toward the river. Blake screamed. Anna looked up, the mug slipping from her fingers and shattering on the floor. She saw him chasing it, his small body sprinting across the yard, coat flapping like wings, boots thudding against the frozen ground. "Blake," she yelled, already grabbing her jacket. But he didn't hear her, or he didn't care. The toy landed 20 feet out on the ice, spinning slightly before settling its red fabric, a dot of color, against the white-blue sheet. Anna burst out the door, nearly slipping on the steps. Kyle, just stepping out of the shower upstairs, heard the scream and ran half-dressed to the window. "Where is he?" But Anna didn't answer. Blake had reached the edge of the river. He hesitated only for a second, then stepped out onto the ice. Anna's heart stopped. Blake. The ice held. 1 step, 2. Then suddenly he stopped. Dead still. Boots half sunk into a slush pocket, arms stiff at his sides. He turned his head slowly toward the house. Anna was already halfway there, panting, slipping, yelling. But Blake didn't move. He raised 1 finger and pointed to the spot beneath him. "This is where he barked," he said calmly. Anna blinked. "What?" Blake turned fully to face her. "He barked so loud. He told me don't move." He was scared. "Who?" Anna shouted, now on her knees at the riverbank. "Doodle," Blake said. Then, as if the world itself was listening, the ice cracked. A sound like a tree splitting. Just 10 feet in front of Blake, the sheet of frozen water shattered. Large chunks broke loose, disappearing into the churning black beneath. Anna screamed. But Blake didn't move. He was still standing on solid ice, right where he said Doodle told him to stop. Kyle was there now, 2 barefoot, running across the snow, shouting Blake's name. But the boy just stood there, frozen by something deeper than cold. Anna didn't wait. She inched out onto the ice, arms wide, stomach pressed low. The sheet groaned beneath her. She didn't care. 1 hand reached Blake's boot. "Hold on to me, baby. Don't move." Blake finally blinked, then nodded. She pulled him toward her, inch by inch, backward crawl boots, scraping ice, creaking like a warning just under the surface. Behind them, the ice yawned again, another crack, racing like lightning across the river's skin. Kyle reached the edge, grabbed Anna's coat, and together they yanked Blake back to shore in a tangle of limbs and snow and screams. They collapsed in a heap. Kyle was yelling. "What were you thinking?" Anna was sobbing. Blake was whispering something over and over. Only she heard it. "He told me to stop. He told me. He told me to stop. He told me." Kyle grabbed his son by the shoulders, shaking. Who told you?" Blake looked him straight in the eye. "Doodle." Kyle froze. Anna sat up slowly, watching the shattered sheet of ice floating like broken glass. The red toy was gone, sucked into the river. But Blake was alive, because something told him to stop. Something no one else could see. Anna pulled him into her arms, trembling. What did he say exactly? Blake's face was pale, but calm. He barked first, really loud. Then I heard him in my head. Like when you remember something, he said. "Stop now, don't move." Anna looked to Kyle. He looked shaken. All his words had left him. That night, no one slept. Blake curled up on the couch between them, shivering under blankets, murmuring half asleep about barking and footprints and water that talked. Anna sat in silence, holding her son's hand. Kyle paced. The house felt smaller than it had ever been. Anna whispered at one point. You saw it? You heard the ice? Kyle nodded. I saw where he was about to step, right where it broke. He nodded again. I don't know how to explain this, Anna said. Don't what? Don't try to explain it. It doesn't need it. They both looked at Blake. Peaceful now. His small fingers wrapped around nothing like he was still holding Red. Anna exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Something had changed, not just in their son, but in the air, in the walls, in their hearts. From that night on, Kyle never laughed at Blake's drawings again. He never questioned the footprints, and every time he passed the river, he looked out over the water and whispered 2 words to no one. Thank you. It had been 3 days since the river almost swallowed their son. Kyle hadn't said much since. He was quieter, slower, watching Blake from across the room, like he wasn't entirely sure if his child was still tethered to the same reality. Anna had noticed how he stopped muting the TV during Blake's early morning conversations with the air. He listened now, even if he pretended not to. That morning, the snow had softened into slush. Dirty gray streaks lined the curb, and the river had frozen over again, this time with warning signs posted by the city. Caution, thin ice. Kyle stood at the fence facing the river, holding a cup of burnt coffee he hadn't tasted. He stared at the spot where the ice had broken, right where Blake had pointed. He didn't know what had disturbed him more, that Blake had heard barking in his mind, or that he'd obeyed it. He heard the crunch of boots behind him. Morning, Mr. Arlen said, a voice like dried leaves and rusted hinges. Kyle turned to find Mr. Halverson, the oldest resident in the neighborhood, leaning on a cane, eyes narrowed beneath thick wool cap and breath curling into the cold. You've been out here every day since the scare, Halverson said. Boy, okay. Kyle nodded, shaken, but fine. Good. He's a smart one. Not many would have stopped like that. River don't play fair. Kyle hesitated. Can I ask you something, Mr. Halverson? The old man lifted his chin slightly. You're not going to ask me about the footprints, are you? Kyle blinked. Halverson smirked. You're not the first. Kyle took a step closer. You've seen them. Everyone around here has. Not often. But over the years, they show up. Always the same. Straight line. No dog ever seen. Just the tracks. Kyle swallowed. You ever hear about a dog named Doodle? The name seemed to freeze Halverson's breath mid-air. After a long pause, the old man lowered himself onto the bench by the fence and gestured for Kyle to join him. It was 93. Bad winter that year. Snow heavier than now. There was a family in the yellow house down the road where the Rogers lived now. Had a little girl. Name was Emily. Sweet kid. Always carried around this little dog. Short mutt, brown and black, one bad leg. They were inseparable. Every day she walked him down to the river. Every damn day. He paused, staring out toward the water. One morning she must have wandered too far. Maybe chasing something. Maybe nothing at all. Ice gave out. Kid went under. Kyle's jaw clenched. She died? No, Halverson said. The dog did. Kyle stared at him. Halverson nodded slowly. Dog tried to pull her out. Barked like hell until someone heard and got to her. They saved the girl. But by then, the dog was gone. Sank right there. Silence. Kyle's voice was a whisper, and his name. Doodle. Kyle exhaled, chest hollowing. Did you know what he looked like? Halverson thought for a moment. Crooked little thing. Walked like his bones were put in backwards. One eye cloudy as milk. But damn if he wasn't loyal. He wasn't. Kyle felt something cold inside him start to shift. My son. He described that exact dog. Before we ever mentioned the name. Said he talked to him. Halverson didn't blink. Then I guess Doodle found someone else to look after. Back at the house, Anna stood in front of the filing desk at the South Chicago Public Archives Center, flipping through yellowed newspaper reels with her gloves still on. The receptionist had given her a strange look when she requested local dog-related rescues from the early 90s. But she didn't care. She needed proof. Half an hour in, she found it. January 4th, 1993. The headline read, Local dog drowns attempting to save girl from frozen river. The photo was grainy black and white. But there he was. Doodle, short frame, limping stance, one ear slightly bent, a black patch over his left eye, and the expression, gentle, alert, fiercely alive. Anna froze, staring at it like she was looking at a ghost, caught mid-breath. The girl in the article was named Emily Waters, 6 years old at the time. She'd slipped through the ice behind her family's home while walking their dog. Doodle had barked frantically, drawing attention from a neighbor. Emily had survived. The dog had not. The article ended with a quote from Emily's father. He died trying to protect her. That dog was family. We'll never forget him. Anna's hands shook as she printed the article. Back at home, she laid the photo beside Blake's latest drawing on the kitchen table. The resemblance was exact. Not just the colors, not just the shape. The eyes. That same uneven gaze, one clear, one veiled. She sat down, pressing both hands flat against the wood. Kyle returned a short while later. His face was pale, lips cracked from the wind. I talked to Halverson, he said. Anna looked up. I found the article. He moved beside her, eyes scanning the printout. Then slowly he reached for Blake's drawing. He's been drawing the same dog for weeks, Anna whispered. Same shape, same limp. Even the left eye. Kyle sat down across from her. The weight of it all pressed between them like gravity. You know what this means, he said. Anna nodded. We've been visited. Kyle shook his head. Not visited. Chosen. They stared at the table in silence. Then Kyle's voice lowered. You think he's here because of Blake? I think he's here because he's not done. That night, Kyle stood at the porch with a flashlight, sweeping the beam across the snow. No footprints yet, but he kept looking. He didn't know what he expected. A bark. A shimmer in the air. A shadow. All he found was silence. And then just as he turned to head back in, he saw it. Not prints, but a single paw mark pressed perfectly into the snow at the edge of the steps. Alone, deep, almost warm, like it had just been made. Inside, Blake was already asleep, curled on the couch again, blanket wrapped around his chin. Anna watched him from the hallway. She held the article in her hands, reading it one last time, lips moving soundlessly over the words. Then she slipped into the living room and knelt beside her son. Blake, she whispered. His eyes fluttered open. Did he come tonight? Blake nodded faintly. What did he say? He said thank you. For what? For remembering. Across town, an old woman sat alone in a dimly lit kitchen. Fingers curled around a chipped mug of tea. The article sat beside her. Her name, Emily Waters, now 40. She hadn't spoken the name Doodle in 20 years. Not since her parents died. Not since she left this city. But the letter in her hand, sent anonymously, had brought it all back. Inside had been a copy of the newspaper article, and one single line handwritten in a child's scrawl. He's still here. He saved me too. She turned the mug slowly. Outside, the wind shifted. And for the first time in decades, she remembered the bark. The urgency, the weight of a soaked fur against her hands, and the way the river closed over him without a sound. Her fingers trembled, and somewhere far away, a boy named Blake dreamed of footprints on snow, and a dog who had never stopped watching, never stopped waiting, never stopped loving. By morning, the snow had stopped. Anna stood at the window holding the newspaper in one hand, Blake's drawing in the other. On the porch below, 2 sets of prints led away from the house, one child-sized, one paw-shaped, perfectly side by side, both still fresh, both still very much here. The snow had begun to melt along the sidewalks, turning white into gray and revealing the bones of the season beneath. But down by the river, the world remained frozen in time. Every morning, Blake would rise before the sun. He'd pull on his coat over his pajamas, wriggle into his boots by himself, and make his way out the front door without a sound. Anna never stopped him. She watched from the window now. Every time. He walked the same path, small feet crunching softly over the snow, following the faint trail already there. The prints were always waiting for him, already pressed into the white before he arrived. They started at the door. Always the same size, same distance between steps. Small, light, perfect. And they led to the river, just to the edge, where the water met the ice, and then stopped, like Doodle had walked there to watch. And Blake would sit down, legs crossed, coat zipped high, and stare out across the silver expanse. Some mornings he talked softly to the air. Some mornings he didn't speak at all. But he always stayed for exactly 9 minutes. Anna had timed it. Then he'd rise, brush off the snow, and return. No words, no questions, just presence. Kyle stopped arguing about it. Something in him had shifted since the archive article. Since the name Doodle stopped being a ghost story and became memory. He would make Blake hot cocoa when he came back, not say a word. Just hand it to him, watch him sip, and sit in silence beside him. And the prints kept coming, always fresh, always new, always alone. One evening, as the sky turned indigo and the wind hung low in the trees like breath, Blake sat at the dining table with a stack of paper and a half-broken pack of colored pencils. He didn't ask for help. He drew slowly with focus. Anna passed behind him, pausing when she saw what he was working on. A dog. Always the dog. But this time, it wasn't running, or barking, or sitting at the edge of the river. This time it was lying down. Its head rested on its paws, eyes open, looking outward, waiting. Blake pressed hard with the black pencil outlining the eyes. One perfect, the other clouded. Anna crouched beside him. Is he sad today? Blake didn't look up. He's always a little sad. Why? Because he's stuck. Anna nodded. Here, Blake said. But not like you and me. She waited. He's not really in the snow, Blake continued. He's somewhere else, but he comes back. He tries really hard. It makes him tired. Anna swallowed a lump in her throat. Then why does he do it? This time Blake looked up. Because he loves me. And Anna didn't speak again. That night, Blake placed the drawing at the foot of the front door, sliding it carefully beneath the crack so it peeked out onto the porch. He stood there looking at it, then turned around and whispered to his mom, I want him to have it. Anna tucked him in not long after. But she didn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening for sounds the house didn't make. Kyle breathed deeply beside her, already gone to sleep. But she was tuned to something else, something below the silence, a presence that had become familiar. She waited until 2:11 a.m. Then she rose, crept through the house, reached the front door. She didn't turn on the lights. She opened the door slowly, letting the chill air crawl around her neck, and looked down. The paper was gone. But what stopped her wasn't its absence. It was the wetness. The porch boards were dry except for one small pool of moisture, right where the drawing had been. It wasn't rain. It hadn't snowed. The sky was clear, but the paper had left behind a damp outline, almost like condensation, or tears. Anna stepped outside barefoot, her breath sharp in the air. She knelt slowly, fingers hovering over the wet shape left behind. It wasn't melted snow. She knew what that looked like. This was something else. Something warm once. She looked out toward the river. Nothing. But she whispered anyway. He got it, didn't he? No answer. But a breeze rose just then, soft curling against her cheek like breath. She smiled through the sting of cold in her eyes. The next morning, Blake went to the river as usual. But this time, he didn't sit. He stood at the edge for a long time, staring out over the frost-stiffened ice. Anna stood at the window, coffee in hand, watching. Then slowly he crouched, took off one of his gloves, and laid it on the snow beside him, and left it there. He walked home with one bare hand. When Anna asked, he simply said, his paw was cold yesterday. I thought this might help. She didn't say anything. Later that day, Anna tried something. She pulled out an old box from the attic. The one with her childhood keepsakes. Dolls with missing limbs. Letters never sent. Drawings faded at the edges. She found a small wooden picture frame empty. She cleaned it, placed Blake's newest drawing inside, and left it on the kitchen table. Blake saw it when he returned from the river that evening. He smiled. He'll like that, he said. He likes when people remember. Anna nodded. Is that why he stayed? Blake thought for a moment. No, he said. He stayed because someone forgot. And he didn't want to leave until someone remembered again. That night, Blake placed the glove he'd left by the river beside his bed. He slept soundly. No dreams. Over the next few days, the prints began to shift. Still straight, still small. But now, there were two sets. One led from the house to the river. The other, back. Anna nearly dropped her mug the first morning she saw them. She called Kyle out. He stood beside her, arms crossed, staring. You think it's... She nodded. He's walking him back. Walking Blake back. No, Anna said. Walking himself back. To Blake. Kyle didn't answer. But he didn't deny it either. The seventh morning, Anna found a small red thread caught in the porch door. It looked like yarn. But Blake's red toy had been gone for weeks, lost in the river. She picked it up, studied it. It was damp, not wet. Still warm, like it had been carried gently in teeth that no longer belonged to this world. She tucked it into her coat pocket and said thank you. That evening she found Blake drawing again. This time the picture was different. It showed Doodle lying beneath a tree. Beside him a small boy holding the dog's leash but not pulling it. Just sitting, together. No snow, no fence, no river, just peace. Anna sat beside him. You're quiet today, Blake shrugged. He's quieter now. Why? I think he's getting tired. Anna felt her chest tighten. Does that mean he's leaving? Blake shook his head. Not yet. He looked up, but soon. That night, Anna set the picture frame in the windowsill. She didn't speak. She just let it catch the moonlight. Outside, the snow was untouched. But in the morning, there were prints again, a full circle around the house, and one gentle tap of a paw on the windowpane itself, right where the drawing had been. By now, the neighborhood had started to whisper. Kids claimed they'd seen a dog with funny legs running through the park, though no one ever caught more than a blur. Mailboxes with dog treats left out were found licked clean, but no signs of raccoons. And once Kyle swore he heard breathing at his back while taking out the trash. When he turned, there was nothing but a single line of paw prints stretching into the dark. But none of it frightened them anymore. It was Blake who kept the fear away, because every time he returned from the river, his face glowed with calm, and Anna began to believe that Doodle didn't haunt them. He healed them, one visit at a time. The final morning of that week, Blake didn't wake at dawn. Anna panicked at first, but when she found him still asleep, cheeks pink, chest rising softly, she stopped herself. He was just resting. She pulled the blanket higher around him, kissed his forehead. Then she stepped outside. The snow was fresh again, and the prints were still there, a perfect arc from the door to the river. Then back, and beside them small indentations. Not prints, but the faint, ghostly shape of something having lain down. A resting place, a pause, a presence waiting. Anna crouched, touched the spot gently, and whispered, "You can stay as long as you need." Inside the house, the drawing on the table was gone, but in its place was something new. A crude but unmistakable shape, a handprint, too big for Blake, too low to be Kyle's, pressed into the table like someone had been there, watching, protecting, always near. And still Blake slept on, smiling. It began with a scream. Not Blake's, not even someone from their street, but it sliced through the morning frost like glass, sending a ripple of panic through the neighborhood. Anna was the first to run outside, Kyle right behind her. Doors opened, heads turned. People stepped onto porches, clutching coats, slippers, phones. The scream had come from the river. Again, Anna's heart pounded as they ran across the icy pavement. Her boots skidded on a patch of black ice. Kyle caught her elbow, but they didn't stop. Breath clouded in front of them, shallow and frantic. They reached the bank in under a minute and saw chaos. 2 women were knee-deep in snow. One yelling into a phone, the other crying uncontrollably. A group of teenagers stood huddled nearby, pale and shocked. One of them kept pointing at the ice, repeating, "He was right there. He was right there." Kyle pushed through the crowd. "Who's missing?" he demanded. A boy, Eli Morales, 7 years old. Lived 4 houses down. Slipped away that morning before breakfast to play on the frozen river with a group of older kids. No adult supervision, no skates. Just sneakers and recklessness. He was following the others, said one of the teens' eyes wide. He stepped off the trail. Then the ice made this sound, and he was gone. "Gone under?" Kyle asked. "Anna?" "No," the boy whispered, "just gone." The river was a flat white sheet, too flat. No cracks, no blood, no signs of entry. But no sign of Eli either, until Blake appeared, tiny, out of breath in his red coat. He walked silently to the edge of the group. No one noticed him at first. Then someone turned. "Isn't that the Morgan kid?" Blake didn't speak. He stepped forward toward the river. Anna called out, but he ignored her. His feet moved like they had a will of their own. Deliberate, measured, then he stopped. He looked down at the snow in front of him, pointed, and said one word. "Here." All eyes turned and saw them. Footprints, small dog-like, leading from the woods behind the river straight to the spot Blake now pointed at. Perfect, unmistakable paw prints. Straight, precise. No return trail. Someone whispered, "There's no dogs out here." Another said, "That wasn't there 5 minutes ago." A third, "What kind of dog walks like that?" Kyle forced his way to his son. "Blake, come back, now." Blake looked up. "He's showing us, like last time. He says Eli is under there. But the ice is too thin. They have to crawl." Kyle's voice broke. "You can't know that." But Blake was already turning to the crowd. "Call them," he said, "the helpers, and tell them to crawl." Kyle grabbed his arm hard. "Enough." Blake looked him in the eyes. "Would you rather he die?" Kyle froze. Then came sirens. The rescue team arrived, fast ropes, poles, bright orange jackets. One of them, a woman with a medic's patch and tired eyes, scanned the crowd. "What's the situation?" "The boy went through," someone said. "We think—" Blake stepped forward. "Right there," he said. The medic stared at him. "You saw it?" "No." But he did. She followed his hand, then saw the prints. Her eyes narrowed. "What the hell?" "We're wasting time," someone said. The medic hesitated, then gave a series of sharp instructions. 2 rescue techs belly-crawled across the ice, tied with thick harnesses moving slowly. When they reached the spot Blake had pointed to, they tapped the ice, listening. Then they saw the fissure. A sliver, just enough. They dropped to their knees. One of them knocked with the metal pole twice. The ice gave way, and beneath pale fingers reached up. Eli, still breathing, still alive. The next day, it was all over the news. Ghost dog leads rescue team to missing boy in Chicago snow. It barked in my head. Neighborhood rumors swirl around mysterious prints. Spirit of dead dog protects children in suburb residents divided. They came with cameras, reporters, skeptics, believers. A local paranormal blog posted old security footage Kyle didn't know had been leaked. Still shots from their porch showing the same pattern of paw prints repeated over nights and weeks. Reddit threads exploded. Conspiracy podcasts reached out. TikTok teens made videos tracing the shape of the paw prints overlaying Blake's drawings. The story had gotten out, and now it was everywhere. Anna turned off the TV mid-segment. This is bad. Kyle stood at the window, arms folded, jaw set. I know. They're going to come here. They already are. Outside, a van idled across the street. A man with a camera leaned out, trying to capture a shot of the front door. Another stood with a mic rehearsing lines to no one. Anna dropped the blinds. Then the knock came. 3 sharp raps. Kyle opened the door slowly. 2 men stood outside, no microphones, no press tags. Badges? City officials. One spoke first. Calm voice, clean coat, eyes, too alert. Mr. Morgan, we'd like to ask you and your family a few questions regarding your son. Kyle didn't let them in, but he didn't slam the door either. He stepped outside, closed the door behind him, and stood on the porch with the cold creeping into his collar. What kind of questions? Your son was at the river yesterday. Yes. He pointed to the exact location where the Morales boy was found. Yes. Any explanation? Kyle's silence was enough. The man continued. We're not here to mock or sensationalize. But when local authorities receive multiple reports of a 5-year-old boy communicating with a deceased animal to locate another child, it raises questions. Kyle exhaled sharply. He's a sensitive kid. We've spoken to a dozen neighbors. Some believe this is a hoax. Others believe something else entirely. What do you believe? The man didn't answer. Kyle stepped forward. You want to know what's really going on? The man nodded. Kyle lowered his voice. I don't know. I don't understand it. But my son has never lied. Not once. He doesn't even know how to lie. And if you think for a second I'd put him up to some kind of neighborhood ghost dog performance, then you don't belong on this porch. The official remained quiet for a moment, then said, Are you denying that your son has claimed to hear this? Dog? Yes, Kyle said quickly. A beat. Are you denying that he believes the dog is real? Kyle's jaw tightened. I'm saying my son is 5 years old. And 5-year-olds say things. The official smiled thinly. Of course. But people are listening. The story's out. And whether you like it or not, the next time something happens around this river, your son will be the first person they come to. You may want to prepare for that. Kyle didn't respond. He just stepped back and closed the door. Inside, Anna sat on the floor with Blake, watching him build a snow fort out of couch pillows. Kyle knelt beside her, whispered, They're watching. They'll keep watching. They think he's different. Anna looked at Blake, who hummed quietly while building. He is different. Kyle rubbed his face. I denied everything. You had to. I hated it. I know. He glanced at their son. Do you think we're protecting him or betraying him? Anna looked him in the eyes. I think we're keeping the world away until it's safe to let them in. Kyle nodded, but his hands trembled. That night, Blake couldn't sleep. He stood at the window again. The prints were there, but different, more defined. He called out softly, He's scared. Anna sat up. What? He thinks they're coming for him. Anna moved to him, crouched. No one can hurt him now. He's not afraid for him, Blake whispered. He's afraid for me. Anna pulled him close, and outside the snow kept falling, covering the tracks slowly, but not hiding them, just waiting, like everything else. The next morning, Kyle placed a small bowl on the porch, inside 3 ginger snaps, and beside them, folded carefully Blake's drawing of Doodle eyes, soft body curled tail wrapped close. Kyle stepped back inside, watched through the curtain, and for the first time, he whispered, We believe you. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked once. Low, clear, and very, very real. The fight started with a whisper and ended with shouting. It had been building for days, Subtle glances, unspoken tension, doors closing a little too hard. But it all came loose over a single sentence. Anna placed the brochure on the table. I want to build something for him. A statue. Just something small by the river. Kyle looked up from his coffee. You mean like a grave? A memorial. For a ghost dog. For the one who saved our son's life. Twice. Kyle pushed the chair back. Anna, do you even hear yourself? She stared at him. Yes, do you? Kyle stood. We're not turning our home into some ghost pilgrimage. We've got people driving by every day trying to catch photos of the prints of Blake. It's only going to get worse. And what if it does? Her voice was trembling now, but not weak. You think pretending nothing happened is protecting Blake? He's the one who sees Doodle. He's the one who talks to him. And maybe, just maybe, he's the one who understands why Doodle hasn't left. We don't know that he hasn't. We do. Kyle shook his head, pacing. We have a son who disappears into the snow every morning, who draws the same dog over and over, who talks to things we can't see. And instead of grounding him in the real world, you want to build something that keeps the fantasy alive. It's not a fantasy, Anna snapped. It's love. That dog died trying to save a girl. And now, decades later, he's saving ours. How is that a fantasy? Kyle's voice cracked. Because I don't want it to be true. Anna froze. Kyle's hands were shaking. I want him to be safe. I want this to be explainable. I want to stop waking up at 3 a.m., wondering if he's still here or if something else took him. Anna stepped closer. He's protected Kyle. You don't know that. I believe that. Kyle's voice lowered to a whisper. That's not enough. And then silence. Anna turned away. Kyle didn't follow. Neither of them noticed the back door swing open. Neither of them heard the soft crunch of snow under small boots. Neither of them realized that Blake, silent as snowfall, had walked out into the storm. The wind howled that night like it hadn't in years. White erased everything: streets, fences, footprints, trees bent under the weight of it. Lights flickered. The river vanished behind a curtain of blizzard, and Blake was gone. Anna realized it first. She passed by his room, noticed the bed still neatly made, the blanket untouched. She called out once, then again, louder fear creeping into her chest like frost. Kyle, he's not in bed. Kyle dropped his phone. What? They searched the house, first closets, basement, pantry, under beds, behind curtains. Anna opened the dryer just in case. Nothing. When she saw the back door ajar, her scream cracked the night. Within minutes, the neighborhood was out again. People grabbed flashlights, scarves, gloves, calling Blake's name into the swirling dark. Cars turned on their high beams, trying to light up the storm. He's only 5, Anna shouted. Kyle ran up and down the sidewalk, slipping, falling, pushing forward. No footprints. None. Not even Blake's. The snow was falling too fast, burying everything. Then someone pointed. There. They gathered around the riverbank. Only one set of prints. Paw prints. Small, neat, clear. They're fresh, someone whispered. But no human prints, not even one. The paw prints led not to the river, but away from it, toward the woods. Anna didn't wait. She ran. Branches whipped at her face. Her boots tore through snowdrifts. Kyle followed, flashlight swinging wildly, illuminating only chaos. But the paw prints remained. A trail through the storm, unbroken, until they stopped. At a tree, a tall, twisted old oak hunched like it had grown under weight instead of sky. And at its base, a hollow, just wide enough for a child. Anna dropped to her knees. Blake, no response. She reached in and found warmth. A small body, curled, breathing, arms wrapped around something red and worn. Red. The toy lost in the river. Anna sobbed. Kyle dropped beside her, yanking off his coat, wrapping it around Blake. Blake stirred, eyes fluttering. Mama. Anna held him so tightly he gasped. Kyle kissed his forehead again and again, hands trembling. Blake blinked slowly. I wasn't alone, he murmured. He walked me here. Anna whispered, Doodle. Blake nodded. He told me you were scared. He told me to sleep here and you'd find me. Anna couldn't speak. Kyle knelt beside the hollow, and for the first time, he bowed his head. To the tree, to the snow, to the unseen, and whispered, thank you. They carried Blake home. The storm still raged, but no one noticed anymore, because something had passed through. Something unseen, but not unfelt. When they reached the porch, Anna looked down and saw them. 2 sets of prints, side by side. One pair small, the other paw prints, as if something had walked them all the way home and left only when it was sure they were safe. She fell to her knees and cried, not from fear, but from awe, from gratitude, from love. Behind her, Kyle stood in the doorway holding Blake and watching the prints vanish beneath new snow, but never, ever from memory. It was the community's idea, not Anna's, not Kyle's, not even Blake's. It started with a folded letter, anonymous, left in their mailbox one morning. Inside was a drawing, Blake's clearly scanned, and a short note. Some things deserve to be remembered forever. That afternoon, a neighbor knocked, then another, and another. By the end of the week, nearly everyone on their block had offered something: labor tools, donations, stories. The woman who ran the florist stand downtown brought white lilies. The carpenter down the street carved the base from reclaimed oak. The city granted permission without much hesitation. Word had spread far enough that even the mayor's office sent a brief letter of approval in honor of uncommon courage seen and unseen. They chose a place right at the river's edge, where the snow always seemed to fall slower, where children once slipped through thin ice, where one dog never stopped watching. The sculpture wasn't large. It didn't need to be. It stood just over 2 feet tall, carved from gray granite and speckled with veins of quartz. The artist had captured him perfectly: head, slightly tilted one ear, drooped back leg, subtly lifted like mid-step. The left eye was dulled, the right sharp and warm. The tail curled in rest, and around his neck not a collar, but a carved ribbon that read, Doodle, 1993, forever. At its base was a simple bronze plaque: not all who walk in snow leave footprints behind. On the morning of the unveiling, the air was clear and still. The wind had paused as if holding its breath. Children stood in their warmest clothes, parents beside them, hands tucked into one another's sleeves. Blake held Anna's hand, dressed in his red coat and a knitted scarf that someone had dropped off with no name attached. He looked taller, somehow 5 years old, but with the poise of someone older. Someone who'd walked farther than his years. Kyle stood on his other side, silent, one hand resting on his son's shoulder. When the cloth was pulled away, a hush fell over the group. And then Blake stepped forward. No one asked him to. He just knew. He walked to the statue slow and sure, until he stood only inches away. Then he placed something at Doodle's feet. It was the toy. Red, faded, but whole. Somehow whole. Blake looked up at the dog's carved face and said clearly, so that everyone could hear, "You don't have to save me anymore. But you can still stay. I like when you stay." Then softer, "I'm not scared of mornings now." No one breathed. Not until he turned around and smiled. The prints disappeared after that. Just stopped. No more paw marks in the snow. No more trails to the river. No circles around the house. Just silence. Peaceful. Still. Anna cried. The first morning she saw fresh snow untouched on the porch. Not out of grief, but because it was the right time. He had done what he came to do. But Blake never forgot. Every morning he still stepped outside. Still zipped up his coat, still walked down the path to the statue. Even when snow turned to mud or spring began teasing green from the edges of the trees, Blake would be there. Just for a moment, standing still, looking up. Some days he spoke, some days he just nodded. And always he smiled before turning back. Anna watched from the window. She never followed. It was his moment. One morning in early March, after the snow had finally melted, Anna stepped out with her coffee and stood beside her son. The grass was damp with dew, and the sun hung low, casting a golden line across the river. Blake stood with his hands in his pockets. "Does he still come?" she asked. "Not like before." "Where is he now?" Blake thought. "He's still here." She looked around. "But the prints." Blake looked up at her. "He doesn't need prints anymore." Anna knelt. "Because you don't need to be saved anymore." Blake shook his head. "Because now, I remember him enough for both of us." Later that spring, a group of school children visited the statue on a field trip. Their teacher explained the story gently, how a dog had once saved a child, then maybe more. How people believed he came back. How some things can't be explained, but should still be honored, one of the children asked. "But how do we know the dog was real?" Blake, who happened to be visiting with his class that day, answered, "We don't. But love is real, and sometimes that's all that matters." The teacher smiled, and so did the wind. As the years passed, the statue stood untouched. No vandalism, no graffiti, just flowers, sometimes dog treats, sometimes toys. One morning, Anna passed by and found a photograph taped to the base. It was of a little girl and a small crooked dog sitting on a porch in the 90s. Emily Waters had come to visit and left part of her memory behind. The community never forgot. Every year on January 4th, someone usually anonymous would light a candle at the base, sometimes in a lantern, sometimes just alone flickering in the cold, but it never went out. Not once. Blake grew. He stopped drawing Doodle every day. He started drawing other things, trees, stars, the river at night. But sometimes when the house was quiet, Anna would find him sitting at the table with an old red pencil in his hand, staring at a blank sheet. And she knew that somewhere just beyond the edges of the page, a familiar shape waited patiently, still watching, still near. One summer years later, the family returned from vacation and found something new beside the statue. Not footprints, but a single red thread caught on a corner of the stone. It waved in the breeze, barely clinging on. Kyle picked it up. It felt warm. Anna tucked it into her journal. Blake just smiled. Healing, they had learned, doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the spaces between fear, in the stillness of mornings, in the footsteps that no longer need to fall, and in the memory of a dog who never truly left. Because love that deep, it stays, even when the snow melts, even when no one's looking, even when all you see is sky. And every morning, still without fail, Blake walks the same path, pauses beside the statue, looks up, and says, "Today's okay, just stay close." Then he turns, smiling, and walks into the light. It was a Monday, the kind of Monday that slipped in softly with pale light, and the smell of morning frost fading into earth. The trees along the river had begun to bud, their silhouettes blurring into green. Blake had just returned from his usual visit to the statue. He was humming to himself as he took off his boots. The house was warm, the kettle hissing in the kitchen. Then came the knock, soft, hesitant. Anna opened the door. A woman stood there, wrapped in a long brown coat. Her hands gloved despite the gentle weather. Her gray hair was neatly braided and pinned. Her face bore the calm lines of a life deeply lived, but her eyes were trembling. She held a folded photograph in her hand. "Are you the Morgans?" she asked. Anna nodded. "I'm sorry to come unannounced," the woman said, voice thin with age but steady. "My name is Margaret Waters. I believe we may share a connection." Anna's heart paused. She stepped aside and gestured gently. "Please come in." Margaret walked slowly into the living room, her gaze brushing the family photos on the wall. The soft couch where Blake often fell asleep, the red drawing still framed above the shelf. She smiled faintly. "I came because of a letter and a photo." She held out the envelope. "It was left at my door 2 weeks ago. No return address. Just this." Anna opened it. Inside was a copy of the article from 1993, the one she had found months ago. And underneath it, Blake's drawing. The same dog, the same pose, the same clouded eye. "I didn't know anyone still remembered," Margaret whispered. Anna sat across from her, hands trembling. "We do." Margaret looked down. "My daughter's name was Emily. She was 6. The winter of 93. She fell through the ice behind our house. We lived just down that hill. Doodle, our dog, jumped in after her. She lived. He didn't." Her voice cracked at the edge of those last 2 words. "I remember the barking," she said. "I remember her screaming and me running barefoot through snow. I remember holding her soaked body while neighbors pulled Doodles out. He was limp. Still. His fur smelled like iron and riverweed." Silence. Margaret looked up. "I thought he was gone. But then, this drawing arrived. This little boy's drawing." Anna nodded, breath catching. "That's our son. Blake." Margaret wiped her eyes quickly. "He's the one, isn't he? The one who saw him." Anna didn't speak. She simply stood and called softly down the hallway. "Blake, honey, there's someone I want you to meet." The boy appeared barefoot and curious, cradling a worn book under his arm. He stopped in the doorway when he saw the woman. They stared at each other for a moment. Then Blake tilted his head. "You're Emily's mommy," he said. Margaret gasped. Her knees gave out, and she sank into the couch, covering her mouth. Blake stepped forward slowly. "He said you missed her." Margaret's tears spilled freely now. You talked to him?" Blake nodded. "He doesn't use words like us. But I feel him, like remembering." Margaret reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded photo, edges worn with time. She held it out. Blake took it gently. A young girl with braids stood beside a small crooked dog with one cloudy eye. They were both smiling. Blake looked at it for a long time. Then he said softly, "He still remembers her." Margaret covered her face and wept. Anna placed a hand on her back, trying not to cry herself. Kyle, standing at the kitchen entrance, watched with glassy eyes. No one said a word for several minutes. Then Blake tugged Margaret's sleeve. "Do you want to come see him?" She looked up. He smiled. "He's waiting." They walked together, the four of them, down the same path Blake took every morning. The grass was wet with spring dew, and the wind was slow and warm. Other neighbors waved as they passed, nodding quietly, not needing to ask. When they reached the river, the statue stood bathed in soft gold from the rising sun. Margaret stopped a few feet away. Her breath hitched. "It's him," she whispered. "It's really him." She stepped forward, knelt down slowly, and reached into her purse. From it, she pulled a small weathered photograph. The original, Emily and Doodle. She placed it gently at the base of the statue beneath Blake's red toy. Then she bowed her head. "I'm sorry," she said, voice cracking. "I never said goodbye. I didn't know I needed to." Her tears fell onto the stone, soaking into the soil. Anna stood with Kyle behind her, holding his hand tight. Blake sat cross-legged in the grass nearby, looking up at the statue. "He knows," he said. "He always knew." Margaret looked at him. "Why did he stay?" Blake shrugged. "Because he didn't want anyone to forget. And because he still loved." Margaret looked at the statue again. "It's been 32 years. Blake smiled. "He doesn't count in years." She laughed softly through her tears. "Neither do I anymore." They stayed there a long time. The town slowly returned to its rhythms, cars starting, doors opening, dogs barking in the distance. But at the edge of the river, something lingered. Not visible, not loud, but real. The space between Blake and Margaret filled with something unspoken. A line pulled tight between past and present. Between the girl who had once been saved and the boy who had been protected since birth. Anna watched them and felt it in her chest that this moment was bigger than explanation. It was grace. Later that day, Margaret returned with a box. Inside were Doodle's old collar, a few photos, and a letter Emily had written just before the accident. Crayon and paper, the misspelled words still vivid. "Doodle is my bestest friend in the whole world. He loves me more than cookies. When I grow up, I want him to come with me. But if I go first, I want him to find someone else who needs him." Anna read it aloud, at the kitchen table, voice cracking. No one spoke for a long time after. Finally, Kyle whispered. "Looks like he listened." That evening, Margaret sat with Blake on the porch. They shared cookies and cocoa, watching the sky shift from orange to indigo. "I used to think I'd forgotten him," she said. Blake looked at her. "You didn't. You just held it inside." Margaret nodded. "And now?" Blake leaned his head on her shoulder. "Now he's outside again." When she left, Margaret kissed Blake's forehead and whispered something no one else could hear. Then she walked slowly toward her car. Before she got in, she turned back to the house and said, "Take care of him, okay?" Blake waved and whispered, "Always." That night, Anna stood by Blake's bed as he slept. She looked down at his peaceful face, his red toy clutched gently against his chest. Then she turned to the window. Outside, the statue gleamed softly in the moonlight, and just beside it, for the briefest moment, a shimmer, a flicker of movement low to the ground, a shape resting near the base, then gone. But Anna didn't flinch. She simply whispered, "Thank you for finding your way back." Then she turned off the light and let the night hold them all, gently, like memory, like love. The storm had arrived in the night with no warning. By morning, the world had vanished. The windows were blank with snow. The porch was buried. The fences were gone, swallowed in white. The trees stood like forgotten statues under thick coats of frost, and the air outside pulsed with stillness, as if the earth was holding something in its chest, waiting. Blake opened his eyes at 6:02 a.m., just as he always did. He didn't speak, didn't call for breakfast, didn't reach for his red toy. Instead, he slid off the bed with careful, silent movements, walked to the door, and stood still. His hand rested lightly on the knob. He waited. Behind him, Anna stirred in bed, but didn't rise. She knew somehow that today was not a day to interrupt. Blake stepped outside. The snow reached up past his boots. He sank into it, small and red against a sea of white. The wind had died, leaving the cold air dense and soundless. Even the river seemed to disappear behind curtains of snowfall blurred into ghostlight. He stood there on the porch, blinking slowly. No prints, not a single one. Not across the yard, not by the steps, not from the woods. The path that had always been marked, always carved with that faithful trail, was now untouched, unbroken. Still, Blake didn't flinch. He simply stood tall, facing the open silence, with a solemn quiet far beyond his years. And then, with a voice barely louder than breath, he said, "Today no one needs saving. But thank you for watching the door all this time." He waited. No response came, but he smiled. and stepped forward. Each step he took sank into the untouched powder, but his gait was calm, sure. The snow whispered around him. The air pressed in, and from somewhere far above, from a place the eye could never reach, a camera would have seen it happen. From that high, impossible view, as Blake walked across the whiteness, something moved behind him. Not fast, not loud, not even visible at first. But then, one single paw print, then another, and another. A slow, precise line of dry, impossibly untouched paw prints forming in the snow behind him. They didn't sink, they didn't melt. They simply appeared. Perfect, clean, like footprints made of light. Blake kept walking, never looking back. And the prints followed, until they didn't. At the edge of the statue, the paw prints stopped. Blake turned then. He looked behind him. There they were, a single line. No departure, just arrival, just presence. He stood quietly staring at them. And then he knelt, pressed his small hand over the last paw print. It didn't melt beneath his skin. It stayed, warm, real. Blake closed his eyes. "Okay," he whispered. "You can go now." And just like that, the wind returned. Not fierce, not cruel, but soft, like an exhale. It swept gently across the yard, lifted the snow in curls, and erased the prints one by one, until nothing remained but white. Blake stood up, smiled, and walked away. Inside, Anna stood at the window. She'd seen it. Not everything, not clearly, but enough. She watched as her son walked back to the house, his small body surrounded by falling flakes, his boots soaked, but his eyes bright. He stepped inside, brushed snow from his hair, and said, "There were no footprints today." Anna nodded. "I know." He climbed onto the couch with his red toy and curled into the cushions. She sat beside him. He rested his head on her shoulder, and they said nothing. Because some things didn't need to be spoken. Some things only needed to be felt. Outside, the statue stood at the river's edge. Still, quiet, unmoving, but not alone. Never alone. At its base, the soil would thaw soon, and when it did, flowers would grow. No one would plant them. No one would see them bloom. But they would come anyway, because love that deep finds its way through anything. Even snow, even silence, even time. In the years that followed, children would visit the statue on snowy days. Some would leave drawings. Some would talk to the wind. Some would swear they saw something move just beyond the edge of the trees, a blur of brown fur, a tail disappearing behind a drift. But Blake didn't talk about it much anymore. He didn't need to. He carried it with him, in how he paused at every door, in how he always looked both ways twice, in how he never let a dog pass without smiling. He carried it in silence like a secret made of warmth and snow. One night, long after the first spring had come, Anna found Blake on the porch staring at the moon. He looked older now, almost 6. He was quiet, eyes fixed on something far away. Anna joined him. They didn't speak for a long time. Then Blake turned to her. "Do you think Doodle found who he was looking for?" Anna blinked. "Who?" Blake smiled softly. "The person he missed the most." Anna's heart twisted. "I hope so." Blake nodded. "I think he did. The snow would fall again someday. The footprints might return, or they might not. But either way, the story remained, etched into stone, into memory, into the heart of a boy who once whispered thank you to someone no one else could see, and into the world, which even if just for a season, had been watched over by one quiet soul with crooked legs and a clouded eye, who never stopped guarding the door.